Hey everybody, what is going on? Hexlex here. Got another Master Duel video for you. Coming at you with some more Onomat Ryzeal. I wanted to show you some going second / coin flip loss gameplay from my climb from Diamond up to Master. I finished out my climb with a different deck. I actually used Orcus to get from Diamond 1 to Master 5, but I did the vast majority of my climbing this season with Onomat Ryzeal. So, starting off, this first duel is going to be a very back and forth game against Fiendsmith Gem Knight that is also playing a B.E.S package, which is really, really cool. This is, I think, the only time I've actually encountered B.E.S on ladder, and like I said, it was a really fun back and forth game, so I wanted to include this duel here. Alright, so as things start off here, they have an Ash from my Fua, but I'm going to use Maxi on the Lurie here, and then they're going to pass after using the Lacrima to set up the graveyard there. Now, I didn't actually manage to get any plays myself, but even if I did, they had a Maxi. I mean, I have Ash Blossom, so I could have just countered it, but to be fair, at least now I can save my Ash Blossom, and I still have the Imperm plus the Nib for my opponent's turn. But let's see what they actually end up doing here. They're going to revive Requiem with the Lacrima, so that way they have immediate follow-up here, based off what they have on board. So, a lot of the reason I wanted to make this video is to not only show off a bunch of going second / difficult games with this deck, but also kind of, I've seen a lot of people say lately, after saying that, Ryzeal wasn't that great anymore, they say, oh, well now Onomat Ryzeal just wins because of Floodgates. It's only because they search Protos or Fossil Dino or Barrier Statue they're able to win. Actually, just not true. And not only is that not true, I would even argue that playing the build with Floodgates is really only good for, or optimal rather, I should say, for tournaments. The build with Floodgates, of course, you can still win on a ranked ladder with. Yeah, here's them starting to do B.E.S stuff. But I think that a build that focuses more on consistency is going to do a lot better on ranked ladder. So I'll show my deck list at the end of the video. I have changed it up a little bit since our last video to maximize the number of one-card starters and hand traps we're playing. Spoiler alert, we're actually on 16 of each. 16 one-card starters and 16 hand traps. Alright, finally managing to find one of those starters here. It's going to be the 7th tack down. We're going to go for the Ice Ryzeal. Putting back the Cross, which I can just grab later. We're going to Ice for Sword, Sword for X. Now, because I have the Nib in play, I cannot search off of the X Ryzeal, which is a little bit unfortunate. But at the same time, I don't necessarily need it here, because my opponent doesn't really have any disruption, potential disruption left. None of the B.E.S stuff, really does stuff on my turn. So, I'm not really concerned about it. Alright, I'm going to dump Aggregator here just to get an extra negate in the graveyard, and then I can use Detonator to pick up that Aggregator, of course. Wasn't able to quite find lethal here, but we also don't really need to, right? Our opponent's not exactly in a favorable game state here. And even as I go to use the Lacrima during the end phase, or the end of the main phase, or no, it is the end phase, I can start using my Detonator to not only get rid of their B.E.S cards, but I'll just use Cross to negate it anyway, because I'll get another Cross negate on their turn. There's no reason not to do it there. Alright, here's the B.E.S Big Core. I'm not really concerned about the B.E.S stuff at this point. I'm just going to negate their Fiendsmith stuff here. It's worth noting the Big Core can't be destroyed in battle. But at the same time, it's like, I've got ways to deal with it. I'm not the most concerned about it here. It's funny, I actually, from like one of my free packs, got a royal copy of Boss Rush. Which, I don't know. If B.E.S didn't have like so many URs, which I say so many, it's only like 6. But for a deck like B.E.S, kind of a big ask in order to craft a fun deck. But I do think B.E.S is a cool deck. Alright, so wanted to start off with that game, because like I said, that one was a little bit more back and forth. Our opening hand wasn't the best, but, in a deck like this, especially with ratios like ours, if you don't open any one-card starters, then that means you either got so unlucky you opened the literal only 6 pieces of non-engine and also hand traps that we have, or you opened a ton of hand traps and hopefully you can use them just push through to your engine, which thankfully we were able to do the latter here. So let's go into the next. All right, here's another, of course, these are all going to be coin flip lost games. This is going to be a going second duel against Mitsurugi Ryzeal. You know, after laddering with Onomat Ryzeal for so long, I'm kind of starting to question if I actually think that Mitsurugi Ryzeal is better than this deck. Because again, when it comes to ranked ladder, I think that consistency is really the most important thing. And this is something that I've pretty much always said on the channel, right? Going back to, I think one of the main videos I kind of made this point in was when I was playing the Challenger Cups, I made a video talking about deck building for a tournament versus for a ranked ladder, right? Like, a lot of the difference that a lot of tournaments are best of 3. And so, in that style of, you know, play, I would consider Onomat Ryzeal with the Floodgates to be a lot better, because the Floodgates are obviously, you know, really at their best if you're going first, and in the best of 3, you're always going to go first at least one of the duels, right? At the same time, even if you, like, you know, brick and draw the Floodgates in best of 3, you know, you can still afford to lose one game and still have a couple more. So I think in best of 3 / in a tournament setting where you do want to be ready for every single scenario, there you can afford to trade consistency for power. But think about ranked ladder. It doesn't really matter how many games you lose, as long as you win more games than you lose. And even in some cases, you can lose more games than you win and still rank up, right? So, yeah, on ranked ladder, you don't necessarily have to have the big swingy power play every single time. What you do need to have every single time is at least one starter and at least one hand trap in your hand. That way, it doesn't matter if you win or lose the coin flip, because there's only one game, you are ready either way. So, that's why I really value Onomat Ryzeal. Again, not for its ability to floodgate, but for just its ability to just persevere and push through stuff. Alright. What do we got here? Where are we at? Duo drive for the node and the ice, because we were able to star for the cross. I think we had that star in our opening hand there. Going into Dugaris. Yeah, this was a really weird board state. Because I wanted to be able to set up a detonator. Like, it's weird, right? Because my opponent has a detonator, so I can't really battle over it and still OTK here necessarily, but what I can do is I can still set up my own detonator and get myself in a game state where I can battle over theirs. So I can use the Eclipse Twins after setting that up to revive the duo drive and give it a material for a cross. And then now I can still overlay into detonator and then pick up Eclipse Twins as a material. And then I should still have, yeah, Aggregator in the graveyard. So that way if I go detonator, pop Eclipse Twins, I can use Eclipse Twins to revive detonator and then attach Aggregator to it. I'm absolutely going to pop their Ryzeal cross here. There's no chance that is resolving. And at this point, they only have 2 other cards left in hand, and I've still got a negate and 2, actually even more than 2 pops here. Especially relieved to see them go for 7th Tachyon. Now I only have 1 card left to deal with. Okay, X send Aggregator. Aggregator is going to be used on the detonator. So now I can go detonator, detach Eclipse Twins, pop itself, let the chain link resolve, detonator is destroyed, Aggregator resolves, no target, X negate on resolution, and then now Eclipse Twins, as I mentioned, activates, detonator revives, and then we're good to go. So, yeah, to be fair, we had a lot of really good hand traps in that hand, but, yeah, I don't know, I just really like Onomat Ryzeal's ability to push through in certain situations where it's a lot more difficult for Mitsurugi Ryzeal to be able to do it. In another way, that's another good example of power versus consistency. With Mitsurugi Ryzeal representing the more powerful end board a lot of the time, if you're not on Floodgates like I am, but the Onomat Ryzeal has more ability to push through hand traps more often. So let's check out this next duel here. Alright, this is going to be a game against Sky Striker. They actually chose to go first here, which is not like the most uncommon thing in the world. But I think Sky Striker does still typically want to go second, if you have the option. I mean, there are things you can do on turn 1, for sure. They're going Toon Table of Contents. Little, I guess, budget version of a... Well, I was going to say budget version of Upstart Goblin, but they're on that, too. For a second, I remember this game now. I was wondering if I was actually playing against, you know, an Exodia build, but as a go linkage for 0, I'm going to use Ash Blossom on the 0. Because I'm pretty sure they were just going to try to use that to add engage, and I don't want them to actually add the engage and then negate it, because I don't want the engage in their graveyard to be able to add back off of a Kagari, right? I would prefer to keep Sky Striker off the engage altogether. Oh, this game, also note, I'm not playing plug-in my finalized build. I did end up taking it out, so... Otherwise, this build is mostly still the same. Oh, the Ganbaranite I ended up taking out as well. Sorry, I forgot how old of a duel this one in particular was. Yeah, this is from my previous build. I'm actually not on the Ganbaranite or the, what was the other one? The plug-in anymore. Alright, so they're going to use Ghost Spell on the Onomat Kage there. I'll summon out my Ganbaranite, and then also Maxi when they go to use the Zero effect. That way I can get a couple of draws here. Not that or a draw rather, because it's only one special summon. Not that I need them, because I do have the Ice Ryzeal anyway, and they'll just concede as soon as I summon that. Alright, let's go into our last game here. Alright, this final duel is going to be up against Tenpai. So I am going first in this game, but I also did lose the coin flip. That's why I specified it's a losing coin flip video and not a going second video. But so honestly, I mentioned this in another video, but when I see an opponent that lets me go first, it's kind of weird in this meta because there's a lot of things it could be. It could be Sky Striker, it could be Tenpai, which this actually is. It could be Gem Knight, it could even be certain Lunalight builds, right? Now here I decided to lead with 7th Tachyon instead of Onomat Para because I'm kind of thinking about the Droll and Lockbird, right? And if I'm going to get hit with Droll and Lockbird, I think I'd rather 7th Tachyon for Ice Ryzeal and then get Drolled. Because, yeah, Onomat Para gets me more bodies, and I can still make rank 4s through Droll with Onomat Para, but I can't make Detonator, specifically, right? So, alright, they have an Imperm for my Banshee. I can still search off the Dododo Warrior. Gonna get the Zubabancho Gaga coat. Gonna actually normal summon the Dododo Dwarf here, which would have let me special summon the Gaga coat from hand, but obviously got Impermed here. But I'm still gonna make Eclipse Twins, if nothing else, just to set it up in the graveyard for later, hopefully. Also, only having one body on board makes it more likely that I'll be able to resolve my Fuelos later. Lightning Storm on the Twins is actually pretty fine with me. They're going to go Magnum Hut on the Eclipse Twins, and then Battle. So at this point I was like, okay, it's probably Tenpai, and they're trying to use Magnum Hut in order to get their play set up. Sure enough, they're going to Magnum Hut for Genroku. Special summon again Roku, and then when they activate the effect, then I'm going to fire off my Fuelos and cycle it here. Alright, so let's see. Genroku summons Pydra. Fuelos finds me Ryzeal Cross. That is definitely not bad at all. Hydra adds the Sangen Kaimen, and they pass right back over to me. Alright, Nibiru is fine. I can put that back with 7th Tachyon. I'm going to go Gagako and then revive the Onomat Kage. They're then going to flip Super Poly, fusing the Magnum Hut with my Onomat Kage, and making the Mud Dragon. But unfortunately for them, I definitely just have follow-up here. I'm going to use the 7th Tachyon to go for X Ryzeal, putting back the Nib, because I will not be needing that. X is going to dump Duo Drive, that way I can set up an extra material on the Duo Drive I summon, and my Cross will be live right away. Not that I actually even needed to do that, because like they wouldn't have any monster effects to use against me anyway, so I didn't need Cross to be alive there, but it's like, why not? You know? Alright, so there's the duels. Let me show you my updated build here. Okay, so this is my list for Onomat Ryzeal. As mentioned, as you can see here, I am not on any of the Floodgate stuff. No Protos, no Barrier Statues, no Fossil Dyna. You just don't need it, not for Rank Ladder. And again, as I mentioned in the commentary during the gameplay, I actually don't even think it's optimal for Ranked Ladder. Now, if you're playing in a tournament, especially best of 3, then I do think it is actually a good idea to play at the very least Protos, if not maybe some other Floodgates. Because again, in a best of 3 setting where you have more time to get your strategy online, and or bricks don't matter as much because you can always have games 2 and 3, or you just want to have the most powerful board to win in the most amount of situations, then I think power over consistency in that kind of a setting, right? And that's why I think the Floodgates are better in tournaments. In best of one ranked ladder, as mentioned before, it doesn't matter how many games you lose, right? As long as you win more than you lose. And because you're only going to have one game, you want to be prepared to go first or second optimally, every single time. So that's why I'm on this build here, which actually has 16 one-card starters and 16 hand traps. For the starters, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. And then for the hand traps, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. So there you go. There are the counts there. There's a ton of different off engine you could play here, by the way. I chose to do kind of my normal lineup of Droll, C, Ash, Fuelos, 1 Nib, and then Imperms. And then I rounded it out with a second Nib, because I actually think Nibiru is pretty good in this format. And then also Perulia. I like having Perulia because not only is it good against Ryzeal and, certain other decks too, but, if you're going to have another Molcharbe card, every deck normal summons, right? Pretty much every deck will normal summon at some point. So Perulia will almost always cycle for 1 draw. Funnily enough, Orcus is actually the one deck where you can get away without giving them any Perulia draws, but even then, you'll still probably end up giving them 1. So, but like I said, there's a ton of different off engine you could play. If you wanted more negates, you could play Veilers. If you wanted to counter like Mitsu and Malice specifically, I thought about playing some Meows potentially. You could play Ghost Spell, you could play Ghost Ogre, like there's any number of things you could play, but I like Nib and Perulia because they feel very, very powerful, and also play very well together. Obviously, Perulia potentially drawing you into the Nibiru. Extra deck is also super duper wide open. I know in a lot of like my combos that I've shown off, I've gone to like Starliege, Photon, Blast Dragon if I have extra materials, but like there's literally any number of rank 4s you could play. If anything, I feel like the biggest reason to play a Floodgate version of this deck would be for the fact that if you're not going to summon a Floodgate and your turn 1 combo goes all the way through, then you would have really rather have had the Floodgate, because obviously ending on something like Protos is stronger than something like Starliege, Photon, Blast Dragon. But again, it's always about trading power versus consistency, and while the end boards for this might be a little bit less powerful, the sheer number of starters and hand traps, while also minimizing the number of bricks that we play, also really helps us. Because if you think about it, this deck literally only has 6 cards you don't want to draw, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, there's Node, and then 6. And even then, Cross, like, you don't mind opening that a lot of the time. So, it's really technically just kind of like 5 cards that you actually don't want to see in your opening hand in your entire deck, which is kind of insane when you think about it, and why I like a build like this quite a bit. Like I said, this got me through the vast majority of my Diamond ladder climbing, basically from Diamond 5 up till 1. And then at Diamond 1, I switched back over to Orcus, or the 2 Orcus in general, and that's what I ranked up with. But gotta give huge props to Onomat Ryzeal for just how consistent it is. But definitely let me know what you think in the comments below. Meanwhile, that's going to do it for now. Thanks for watching. Let's go ahead and thank our YouTube members and patrons in the outro. Hey everybody, Hexlex here. Thank you so very much for watching all the way to the very end of the video, which by the way is one of the best ways to support the channel. Speaking of supporting the channel, take a look at the names on screen. These are folks who have been so generous as to either join as a YouTube member or subscribe over on patreon.com/Hexlex to support. There's also perks for doing so. If you would like to see YouTube videos early, as well as some exclusive videos that get uploaded to YouTube, but for one reason or another I decide not to publish, definitely go ahead and hit that join button to see content early, as well as some exclusive content. If you're looking for more exclusive content, over on patreon.com, I upload exclusive videos that are not posted on YouTube just about every single day. Whether you choose to subscribe over on Patreon, join as a YouTube member, or simply continue to watch, your support is greatly appreciated. Thank you so very much. But for now, this is Hexlex. I am signing out, and I hope that you have a fantastic day.